Hey everybody, Alex Kazora, SteelersDepot.com, back with some Pittsburgh Steelers news and draft analysis. The 2021 NFL Draft is in the books, and the Steelers have made several selections. I believe, what was it, six in total on Sunday alone, rounds 4 through 7. Let's talk about the newest batch of Pittsburgh Steelers. Starting with the team's first pick in round number 4 at 128, the Steelers go with Dan Moore Jr., offensive tackle out of Texas A&M. Some people have projected Moore to kick to guard at the NFL level. The Steelers confirmed, including offensive line coach Adrian Clem, Moore will be a tackle for the Steelers. Played primarily on the left side at Texas A&M, a little bit of right tackle experience as well. So hopefully he can kind of get some more work at right tackle and become a potential swing guy for Pittsburgh. A big body at 6'5", 310 with really good length, 34.5-inch arms, good experience overall. Wouldn't call him finesse. He's a little on the lankier side at the 6'5", 310. It's not quite the nasty, big hulking frame, but definitely a big long frame overall and a really good movement guy. Tested pretty well. At his pro day, his RAS, relative athletic score, is pretty strong. And so his profile was someone that was going to be a good pass protector and a good zone blocker. And so you hear about Kendrick Green being a good zone block guy, Dan Moore Jr., potentially best fitting in a zone blocking scheme. Again, signals the Steelers maybe changing things a little bit under new head offensive line coach Adrian Clem and assistant Chris Morgan. Again, Chris Morgan, in his time with Atlanta, worked with Kyle Shanahan, who was very much all about the zone blocking scheme. So Dan Moore, I know that Adrian Clem said he's a guy that can be in the mix right away, and to some extent he probably can be because he has a lot of experience in the SEC and against good competition. But I still think it might be a year for him, just for the natural, jump for tackles to make, and do have a core for, and of course Zach Banner as well. Joe Haig, a veteran sign, he's a swing guy and capable of playing really up and down the whole offensive line except for center. So I think Dan Moore may need a year overall, but a core for being in the last year of his rookie contract, you could see Dan Moore really get into that mix I think, for 2022. With the Steelers' second, fourth round pick at number 140, they're staying with the Aggies with Buddy Johnson, the linebacker out of Texas A&M, and that's one guy that I really need to do some homework on. Tackling machine, over 200 tackles in his college career. Again, a good athlete, tested really well, ran I think a 4.58 or 230 pounds. Overall, just tested pretty strong. And inside linebackers coach Jerry Olsavsky said that he liked Johnson's downhill demeanor, physical, aggressive. You see some pass rush juice with 4 sacks this past season for Texas A&M. More of an off-ball guy than an outside linebacker, but in Pittsburgh they're going to blitz off-ball guys up the B gap quite a bit. Vince Williams has made a living off of those blitzes, and Keith Butler and the Steelers overall scheme those up very well to get either one-on-one chances with the running back or ideally even some free rushes with that linebacker coming through the B gap if the offensive line doesn't block things up correctly. So Johnson, a guy that is going to be a special teamer early. You still have Vince Williams there. You still have Robert Spillane there. I think overall you do have pretty good depth with return of Devin Bush. Of course, he's going to start with UG3 with that back. Hopefully that stays healthy. If it does, you got a good player there. And Marcus Allen really entering his first full season as an inside linebacker, a whole offseason to really adjust and learn and probably add a little bit of weight to the position as well. So was this the biggest need? Probably not. Grades and value and those things can dictate a lot, especially on day three. And Keith Butler seemed to almost imply as much a little bit later when the Steelers took Trey Norwood, or actually when I think they took Quincy Roche, talking about needing to add a corner, which they did with Norwood. We'll talk about him in a second. But Johnson, a pretty explosive downhill guy. I need to watch some more tape on him, but that's the pick in the fourth round. Then 16 spots later, where it felt like the Steelers were going to be waiting a while from their fourth round pick at 140 to 216 in the sixth round, they jump back up. They get into the fifth round at 156, trading a 2022 fourth round pick to Miami to get into the fifth round to take Isaiah Loudermilk, a defensive lineman out of Wisconsin. I know initially there was some debate or discussion or reporting about could or would Loudermilk play on the edge. Could they try to convert him the way they did Anthony Chickalo? That's not going to happen. Carl Dunbar, the Steelers confirmed he's a defensive lineman, which thank goodness. He's not going to play on the edge. He's just not athletic enough. Um, I, I don't like this pick at least at first glance for a lot of reasons. A, trading up for him. B, just the player himself, the need itself. It's not really a big need for Pittsburgh. They had edge, they had corner, they had a lot of ways they could go if they wanted to move up and get someone. And I didn't really view Loudermilk as someone that was going to be a high draft pick. Now they feel differently. They felt like they wouldn't get him in the sixth round, and who knows? They could be correct about that. And I will say two things in his favor. He is that classic case of that big, strong, tough Wisconsin kid. Played at 290 pounds at Wisconsin, played up and down the line, one tech, three tech, five tech. And in this class, and Dave Bryan and I talked about it sporadically throughout the pre-draft process, that there weren't a lot of guys who kind of had that five tech, four eye mold, that 3-4 defensive end. Just not many guys in that class who really seemed to fit, and some who did had some issues. Marvin Wilson falls out of the draft entirely, I think, due to some medical stuff, and so that may not have been an option for Pittsburgh. Now he's a guy Loudermilk is someone that's 6'6", 200, and his pro day was 274, but his weight's back up in the 280s. He'll probably play in the 290s and got to be that classic 6'5", 6'6", 290 to 300 pound defensive lineman. Now his length is below average. It's about 32.5 inch arms, which is pretty subpar for a guy of his height. But the height itself is still going to be impressive and help you see over blocks and match up against some of these bigger tackles. So that's nice. So I think, and I understand the comment that Tomlin and Colbert made, and I agree with it. Made this point in the pre-draft process. The scarcity of the guys that look and play like him is pretty rare, at least in this draft class. But the question is still, do you need to trade up to get that guy? You had, brought back Chris Wormley. You have a couple of young defensive linemen, and Henry Mondo and Isaiah Buggs and Carlos Davis and guys like that. Was it so necessary to trade a pretty valuable, next year future pick? Those things are going to be important next year when you hopefully have a normal draft year and you feel more comfortable with that. Now, Colbert said, and we'll say the Steelers are going to have comp picks next year, and they will. They'll get a third for Dupree and probably a fifth for, I think, Matt Filer, I believe, is going to get the fifth for him, and maybe Villanueva will get something. Although the comp period is about to end, so probably won't happen. But anyway, so Colbert felt comfortable about moving up, but yeah, again, I need to watch more Loudermilk because I didn't even think he'd be, might have been a late day three guy, but he is that kind of classic, strong Wisconsin tough kid that's going to play the run hard, get his hand in throwing lanes and stuff like that. I think the upside's probably pretty limited, but the Steelers felt, again, just the scarcity of the body type and the position he played is kind of an actual 3-4 defense at Wisconsin that they wanted to get him. I don't think I'm going to agree with that, but that was the decision the Steelers have made. In round number six, the Steelers finally addressed the outside linebacker position with Quincy Roche, the edge out of Miami, Florida. He's not going to wow you both in terms of the size. He comes in about 6'2, 245, average length, athleticism. He's about average across the board, but the production was really high. I believe 30 and a half career sacks across Temple and Miami, grad student transfer from Temple to Miami for this final season and had a nice year in Miami. They had some really good pass rushers with Jalen Phillips, a first round pick. So the sack numbers weren't great for Roche, 4.5 sacks, but 14.5 tackles for loss, and just heavy production every single year. In 2019 with Temple, had 13 sacks and just a really strong season overall. He's lauded for his technique, his hand use, playing hard, being an effort guy, and being a technician. That's what Roche said himself after the pick was made, that he's a technician. That's how he's going to win. So I like that pick. Good value. I thought Roche could be a earlier round or two guy, fourth round pick. I kind of thought that was going to be the range he was going to go. So I do really like the value. I think probably Roche was the best value pick the Steelers took in the entire draft, and so that makes up a little bit for the how late it was to take an edge rusher in the sixth round. I think when your depth is so non-existent behind T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith, I wanted to see it come earlier. I thought when they traded up, they might be going to get an edge like a Roche. So I guess in one sense, it kind of worked out. But I think this guy has more potential than your typical six-round pick. I don't know if the upside is immense with him, but when you have Highsmith and Watt as your starters, it doesn't need to be, starting kind of upside with Roche. I think he can develop into a really nice number three outside linebacker. And in the round seven, with the first of the Steelers' seventh round picks, they took Trey Norwood, the corner out of Oklahoma, a guy that's versatile, can play slot, can play safety. Mike Tomlin announced the pick, calling him a Swiss Army knife slash utility back. So that's kind of the idea with Norwood. The more hats you can wear, the more value you're going to carry, the better your odds of making the team make an impact is. And so when you have needs at slot corner, even outside corners, maybe depth things you want to add there, that safety depth is pretty light overall. I think getting a guy like Norwood is good to have. Five interceptions this past year, had a big pick six to start that blowout win in the bowl game over Florida, picking off Kyle Trask. Did a nice job to jump that route and house call that one. So the Steelers like playmakers. They want guys with ball skills who take the football away, who have versatility, and Norwood has all that. He's an average to below average athlete. Some of his agility times are really poor. I think a 7.5 or a 7.65 3 cone, something really, really ugly like that. but a guy that does wear a lot of hats, and that's going to give yourself extra value, especially as a seventh round pick trying to make a roster in the NFL. And with the team's final pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, they took punter Presley Harvin III out of Georgia Tech, the big boy at 5'11, 263. The Steelers had interest in him in the pre-draft process. Danny Smith was at his Yellow Jackets pro day where Harvin reportedly had a really nice day in some poor weather. Obviously, you're going to punt in Pittsburgh. You better be able to punt well in poor weather. And so I think that probably helped sell him on being the pick in the seventh round. Really big leg, Ray Guy Award winner in 2020. Quick operation. He can throw the football too on fakes. He was a shot put guy in high school, and can had a 41-yard touchdown pass in his Clemson in his Georgia Tech career. I should say maybe he came against Clemson. I don't remember quite what team it came against, but to me, the second best punter in this class, I had Drew Chrisman out of Ohio State ahead of him, but I think Harvin has more upside and a lot more potential there. So I went with Presley Harvin in my mock draft, and so I was happy to be right about that one and to get Harvin, who is a fun story for being a big guy and a weird body type for the position, but a really good punter overall. So let's focus on that, and he certainly will push Jordanberry very hard to be the Steelers punter in 2021. And finally, with some of the Steelers' undrafted free agents, still getting some of the names coming in. I'm recording this video before it's been officially announced by the Steelers and undrafted free agency. That first wave can be very fluid, things can change, but the theme so far for Pittsburgh has been defensive backs. 6 of the 9 reported guys signing in Pittsburgh have been defensive backs. That list is led off by Shakur Brown out of Michigan State, who's undersized nickel guy. Who did not run well. He ran in the 4.6s at his pro day, but had 5 interceptions in 2020 for Michigan State. Also, Mark Gilbert out of Duke, actually the cousin of Terrell Revis. So he's coming back home to Pittsburgh. So a pretty cool story there. Had 6 interceptions in 2017. I think he's battled some injuries since then, but I like the upside and the potential there. And then some other guys they've signed as well, including Isaiah McCoy, the receiver out of Kent State. So there is your Met guy, a big play threat who had over 18 yards per catch this past season. So I think a better than expected undrafted free agency class, and definitely focusing on defensive backs and trying to add as much depth as possible, where you definitely need some extra depth at corner and at safety. So overall, final thoughts. I'm not going to grade it yet. Obviously, I want to kind of take a step back and sleep on it, and watch more tape on some of these guys here. I don't think it was a home run, class of 74, 2.0 kind of draft happening, or even maybe not as good as it was in 2017, but I think it was overall good, especially at the top, getting Najee Harris. Firemouth pick, I think was a good, not great selection. And then you kind of focus on offensive line with Kendrick Green and Dan Moore Jr. So that's kind of the focus there in terms of offense and going offense heavy, which was really the focus of this draft and not a surprise. The Steelers need to upgrade their offense in a lot of different areas, especially the run game overall. So Harris, Fryermuth, and obviously the offensive linemen are going to help accomplish that. Overall final thoughts. The themes of this draft where they wanted guys from Power Five schools, they wanted guys who played in 2020, guys that they felt like they had the most you know comfortable and cleanest evaluation on. So that is no coincidence that all these guys they drafted played this past season. They all came from big schools, and a lot of them obviously played in Senior Bowls and stuff like that. So I think that was very important to Pittsburgh, and that's reflected there in their draft picks. So we'll have a lot more draft coverage. I'll do tape breakdowns on these guys. We got a ton of articles for Steelers Depot and the contributors and myself, and podcasts and reaction, and just every angle possible we're going to be covering this thing. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. How good was this draft? Did you like day 3? What positions do you feel like they should have addressed if they didn't address it at all, or address it earlier than they did? Say corner, edge. Would you have taken a punter in the 7th round? Would you have used a different position with that final pick at 254? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you soon.